October 14th, 2025. Rose Garden, White House. President Trump posthumously awards Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom. 2 weeks ago, on September 25th, the State Department quietly revoked visas for 47 non-citizens who publicly celebrated Kirk's assassination. Justice, not revenge. There's a difference. And as Christians, we better understand it. I'm Scott Houghton, and 5 weeks ago, in episode 1 of this podcast, I said watching Charlie Kirk stand for his beliefs until the very end gave me my voice again. Today, watching his widow accept that medal, seeing justice done without vengeance, man, this is what principled governance looks like. This is Faith, Freedom, and Tech with our Faith and Freedom episode. And today, we're talking about what it means to pursue justice while extending grace. Because that tension, that's the whole Christian walk right there. Welcome back to Faith and Freedom, where we tackle the intersection of faith, politics, and technology. Our Tuesday Tech Deep Dive is already live if you want pure cloud architectural content. But today we need to talk about something deeper. Look, I know some of you are thinking, Scott, you already did a Charlie Kirk episode, move on. But this isn't rehashing his death. This is about what comes after. Because how we respond to injustice, how we pursue justice without becoming vengeful, that defines us as Christians, as conservatives, and as Americans. And what happened this past week, both at the White House ceremony and with those visas revoked, that's worth examining with receipts. Let me be straight about where I'm still a very flawed Christian, like I mentioned in episode 1. Still drink more beer than I should, still swear like a sailor I am. Still figuring out this faith thing one day at a time. But watching Charlie Kirk's legacy honored while justice was quietly served, that hit different. So let's talk about what actually happened on October 14th. The White House, Rose Garden, President Trump, Erica Kirk accepting the Presidential Medal of Freedom on behalf of her husband. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Medal of Freedom is the highest civilian honor in America. It's awarded for especially meritorious contributions to the security or national interests of the United States, world peace, culture, or other significant public or private endeavors. The citation specifically mentions Kirk's work mobilizing young voters, his fearless advocacy for conservative principles, and, this is important, his ability to change minds through persuasion rather than coercion. Trump's remarks were, well, they were Trump, unscripted, emotional, real. He talked about meeting Kirk multiple times, about how Kirk got it when it came to Gen Z, and how the assassination was an attack on free speech itself. But here's what got me. Erica Kirk's response. She didn't call for vengeance. She didn't demand blood. She said, and I'm quoting from the White House transcript, Charlie would want us to continue the work, to speak louder, to love harder, to never surrender to fear. That's grace under pressure. That's what Proverbs 31 talks about when it describes a woman of valor. And it's a hell of a lot harder than revenge. Now, 2 weeks before that ceremony, something else happened. September 25th, the State Department quietly revoked 47 visas. Weren't U.S. citizens. These were foreign nationals here on various types of visas who publicly celebrated Kirk's assassination on social media. The State Department didn't announce it with a press conference. They just did it. The legal authority, Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 212A, 3B, making terroristic threats or supporting terrorism. If you're a non-citizen and you're publicly celebrating An American being murdered for political speech, that's a deportable offense. Now, I've seen some conservatives saying only 47 should be thousands. And I've seen progressives claiming this is chilling free speech. Let me address both. First, to my fellow conservatives, 47 is what they could prove. Remember, the standard isn't said something we don't like. The standard is documented support for political violence, screenshots, archived posts, clear statements. But they built cases on each one. That's how justice works. Methodically, legal, with evidence. Second, to progressives, this isn't chilling speech. U.S. citizens can say vile things, and they're protected by the First Amendment. That's the deal. But if you're here as a guest in this country and you celebrate Americans being murdered, you've lost the privilege of being here. That's not censorship. That's consequences. The difference matters a lot. All right, time to get into theology here, because as Christians, we're called to a really difficult balance. Romans chapter 12, verses 17 through 21, Paul writes, "Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, and as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay,' says the Lord." But then, and this is crucial, he continues in Romans chapter 13, verses 1 through 4, talking about government authority. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted. For the one in authority is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for rulers do not bear the sword for no reason. They are God's servants, agents of wrath, to bring punishment on the wrongdoer. See the distinction? Personal revenge? That's sin. We don't get to be the avengers. But governmental justice? That's not only permitted, it's required. Judges, prosecutors, law enforcement, they're supposed to bear the sword in pursuit of justice. So when the State Department revokes visas for people who celebrated an assassination, that's not revenge. That's justice administered through proper authority. When Trump honors Kirk with the Medal of Freedom, that's not revenge against his killers. That's recognizing merit. It's standing for what's right. The tension is this. As individuals, we're called to forgive. As a society, we're called to pursue justice. Both can be true at the same time. Erica Kirk can forgive her husband's murderers. And I hope she does for her peace, while still supporting the prosecution of those murderers. She can extend grace personally while demanding accountability publicly. That's not hypocritical. That's biblical. Now, let me connect this to something else we talked about in our Apple Sabbath episode a few weeks ago. Remember that case? Apple firing a Jewish employee for observing the Sabbath, even though they claim to be diversity and inclusion. Here's the connection. Justice requires consistency. If we're going to say companies must accommodate religious observance, and they should, it's the law, then we also have to say governments must hold people accountable for celebrating political violence. Both are about maintaining standards. The legal term for this is Roth standard, from a Supreme Court case about religious accommodations. It says employers have to make reasonable accommodations unless it causes undue hardship, not inconvenience, not preference, actual hardship. The same principle applies to immigration. We accommodate people who come here legally, who respect our laws, who contribute to society. But celebrating the murder of Americans, that's not a position worthy of accommodation. That's grounds for removal. See, justice without revenge means applying standards consistently, even when it's hard, even when it doesn't benefit us personally. It means Apple has to accommodate Jewish Sabbath observation, even if it's inconvenient for their schedules. And it means we deport people who celebrate terrorism, even if progressives call it free speech. Standards matter. Consistency matters. Justice demands both. You know what hit me the hardest about this whole thing? In chapter 1, I said watching Charlie Kirk stand for his belief until they killed him, for it gave me my voice again. That is his example shook out of my cowardly silence. Well, watching Erica accept that medal, watching her carry on with grace and strength, watching justice be done without vengeance or cruelty, that's teaching me something deeper. It's easy to be bold when you're angry. It's easy to speak up when you're looking for revenge. What's hard, what takes real courage, is pursuing justice while extending grace, standing firm on principles while showing mercy to individuals, demanding accountability while refusing to dehumanize. I'm still figuring out what this looks like in 10. When a colleague mocks Christians, do I respond with anger or with grace? When DEI training presents my values as bigotry, do I fight back vengeful or stand firm with love? When I lose a contract because of my beliefs, do I lash out or do I trust that God's got it? I don't have all the answers yet. Still working on it. Still failing more than I succeed. But the Kirk's family's example, honoring Charlie's legacy without demanding blood, accepting justice without seeking revenge, that's showing me the path. Proverbs chapter 24, verses 17 through 18 says, "Do not gloat when your enemy fails. When they stumble, do not let your heart rejoice, or the Lord will see and disapprove." Those 47 visas we've revoked, that's not a reason to gloat. That's just justice being done. The Medal of Freedom, that's not about rubbing it in anyone's face. That's honoring merit and standing for truth. So what do we do with this? How do we apply justice without revenge in our daily lives, especially in tech? First, when you face discrimination for your faith, and you will if you're open about it, pursue justice through proper channels. Document everything. File complaints. Use the legal system. That's not revenge. That's accountability. We talked about this in Apple episode. Title 7 protects you. Use those protections. Second, when someone wrongs you personally, separate personal forgiveness from institutional accountability. You can forgive your manager who passed you over for a promotion because of your beliefs, while still reporting it to HR. Both can be true. Third, support consistent standards. You want religious accommodations for Christians. Support it for Muslims and Jews too. If you want free speech for conservatives, defend it for progressives. Justice requires consistency, even when it costs us. Fourth, refuse to celebrate others' suffering. When woke companies go broke, when progressive policies fail, when our enemies stumble, don't gloat. Make your case, stand on principle, but don't become what you're fighting against. Finally, remember that justice is God's ultimately. Romans chapter 12, verse 19. Leave room for God's wrath. We pursue justice through proper channels. We stand for what's right, but we don't become avengers. That's God's job. Here's what I think is really happening. The Charlie Kirk effect we've talked about. Gen Z awakening to truth, rejecting woke nonsense, returning to faith. That's continuing. but it's maturing. We're moving from anger to action, from outrage to organization, from revenge fantasies to principled governance. That Medal of Freedom ceremony wasn't about sticking it to the left. It was about honoring merit. Those visas we revoked weren't about censoring dissent. They were about enforcing standards. The difference matters. The left wants to paint every conservative action as fascist revenge. They want to claim that any accountability for celebrating terrorism is authoritarian. Don't give them the ammunition by actually being vengeful. Stand firm, pursue justice, demand accountability, but do it with grace. Do it with consistency. Do it with the understanding that we're all broken people in need of mercy, even as we maintain standard. Micah chapter 6, verse 8 sums it up. He has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Justice and mercy, standards and grace, strength and humility. That's the Christian walk. That's what separates us from both the progressive left that demands no standards and the vengeful right that demands no mercy. Look, 5 weeks ago, I started this podcast because I was tired of hiding my faith in tech. Charlie Kirk's example gave me my voice, but his widow's example is teaching me how to use that voice. Not with revenge, not with cruelty, not with the kind of dehumanizational rhetoric that led her husband's murder in the first place, but with truth, with justice, with grace, with the understanding that we can stand firm on principles while extending mercy to people. That Medal of Freedom ceremony honored a man who's never backed down from truth. Those visas that were revoked upheld standards without vengeance. Both can coexist. Both should coexist. This is Scott Houghton, still figuring out this faith thing one day at a time, still making more mistakes than I'd like to admit, but committed to pursuing justice without revenge, to standing for truth while extending grace, to being excellent at technology while being authentic in faith. Next Tuesday, we're back to our tech deep dive. Hear technical content for those who want it. But next Thursday, we're talking more about faith and freedom. Watching a few different things, Big Tech's parental control lawsuit just dropped. Because apparently these companies think they can censor conservative content while refusing to protect kids from actual harm. That's hypocrisy. We're going to expose it with the receipts. If this resonated with you, share it. Post it on LinkedIn. I dare you. Find me on X at FT_podcast or everywhere else at Faith Freedom Tech. Check out faithfreedomtech.com for complete show notes and every receipt. We're building a movement here, not one based on anger or revenge, but one based on truth, justice, and grace. Keep building, keep believing, keep pursuing justice without revenge. God bless, and we'll talk soon.